Hi, I'm Alexandra Harbushka, founder of Life with Herpes, and I'm excited to be here with you today. All right, let's talk about those 3 little words that you are going to say when you're dating. All right, so when I first heard this, the 3 little words, I don't know where I was. I don't know if I was listening to the radio. I don't know if I was reading something. I don't know where I was, but I heard the person say, is it really hard to say those 3 little words? And I immediately thought, oh, it's I love you, because that's what we're programmed, right? It's the hallmark way of programming, Valentine's Day, and you got to get the card and, diamonds and all this. Like, is it really, the 3 little words are I love you. And when we get in relationships, it's like, oh, have you said those 3 little words? And that's just how we've been programmed, right? Well, that's not what he meant. It meant the 3 little words were, I have herpes. And as we know, because we have herpes, saying that to somebody is really hard. So my question to you is, what's more difficult, to say I love you or I have herpes? So let me dive into my relationship and my relationships that I've had to tell people, and I told people I love them and told people I've had herpes. So basically there's 2 men that I dated after being diagnosed with herpes. And there's 2 men that I had these conversations with. So one of them was an ex-boyfriend, and then one of them is my husband. Now, obviously, you know how the husband one works out. But let me tell you a little bit about when I was dating my ex-boyfriend. So he and I, we were friends. We had spent a lot of time together. I'd known him for a number of years. And then I kind of realized, like, oh, we're spending more time together. Oh, we're spending more time together. Oh, I kind of like him. Like, we're spending more time together. And it was about 3 months into dating when I told him that I have herpes. And the way that it came up is I knew I had to have this conversation, but I didn't know when I needed to have the conversation. I didn't know when we were gonna kind of go down that path. And we were at dinner, really good, Bankers Hill Bar, highly recommend it if you're in San Diego, great French fries. But anyways, we were there, and somehow the conversation of STDs or something got brought up in joking in the conversation. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, oh man, I have to say something now, because if I don't say something, then it's gotten too far. Like it's gonna be one of those really awkward, weird conversations when I go back and like backpedal. I'm like, oh, remember that one time? And well, yeah, and I was too embarrassed. So I decided to bite the bullet and have that conversation. So I remember telling him, like, I have herpes. And I had like the butterflies in my stomach and like, like that pit, and I was so nervous, and it was like, what's gonna happen? What's he gonna say? What's gonna be the next thing? And of course he was super caring about it, and, supported me and said like, hey, I'm here for you. Any question, let's talk about it. I wanna know more. And it ended up working out, right? We dated for a couple of years and it was great. So telling him was difficult for me. Having that conversation with him was a very difficult conversation. I was concerned about the way that he would approach it. And of course, I was scared about the rejection. Now, in past people that I dated, I had just thrown it out there because I used it as my scapegoat for getting out of having sex. Again, whether that's right, whether that's wrong, I'd be like, oh, well, I have herpes. And then a lot of times they'd be like, oh, okay. But a lot of times they didn't care. And then I was like, oh, great. Now I got to come up with another reason, like not to have sex, right? Opposed to just saying like, hey, I'm just not interested. So anyways, I used it depending on my situation. Now, moving forward to my husband, before I started recording this and before I started writing the blog post, I brought up the idea to him. I was like, hey, Bill, what do you think of me talking about the conversation about what's harder, I have herpes or I love you? And he's like, oh man, that's a really good topic. I'm curious, because he doesn't have herpes, so he hasn't had to have those conversations. And as I was talking to him about it and talking about our relationship, I realized it wasn't difficult to tell Bill. It wasn't difficult to tell Bill that I loved him. It wasn't difficult to tell Bill that I have herpes. And I think I just knew in my heart that he accepted me and he loves me and I love him. And it was just one of those things that it wasn't the same like nervousness that I had had in the past. So when I told Bill I had herpes, it was actually long before we were even dating. We weren't even together at this point. We had worked together, and he was my friend. And when I came into the office after getting off the phone with the doctor and was diagnosed, he could just tell something was wrong. I talk about this in other episodes, so if you want to find that whole video, you want to hear Bill's side of the story, I highly recommend going back and finding it, or I can link it for you. But I was not nervous to tell him back then that I had herpes, because of course I never thought that we were going to be together. Like, that just wasn't in my mind. And he was extremely supportive of me at that point. And so, of course, when we fast forward and we're now going to date, however number of years it was later, I can remember exactly where I was and what I was wearing. I still kept the outfit when I told him I loved him, right? And so, like, that was just, that to me, I think was more, it was so easy, but it was like scary. Like, I really, really love this man, and does he love me too? I wasn't worried about the herpes. I wasn't, because I knew that he would accept me for it. So it's just interesting on how different relationships, I was more concerned about the I love you, like, does he love me back? Then will he accept my situation with having herpes? So I think it depends. I think it depends on where you are in your relationship. I think it depends on you know, not necessarily knowing the other person's feelings. They're both scary to say, because you're putting yourself out there and you're like, okay, they're really parallel in the sense of, like, I'm putting this out there and what's going to happen. So anyways, I just thought I'd share my opinion and different situations of dating and telling that person, hey, I love you, and hey, I have herpes. I'm really curious to see what you have to say. Like, was it difficult for you to say I have herpes? Is it difficult for you to say I love you? I mean, these are really important words that we have when we're in a relationship. Both are really important, and both are important to continue to discuss as you go through your relationship. All right. I did not talk about the secret society. I keep forgetting to talk about it in the beginning of the video. If you're not a member, I really want to invite you over to join the Secret Society. It is an online community for people living like herpes. So if you're like me, which I'm assuming you are, and you have herpes, come on over. Come on over, check it out, say hi. It is basically 24-hour hand-holding and a way to mix and mingle with other people that have herpes. Ask your questions, find support others. We have weekly live video chats. Awesome. It's an opportunity to speak with me and other members in the community from all over the world. So you get different perspectives on dating, on saying I have herpes, I love you, whatever it is. It's really a great spot. So go to lifewithherpes.com and check it out. All right, I'll see you soon in the next video.